Okay, this second video is meant to be watched after the some housekeeping one I've just done. Now in that, if you haven't seen it, I talk about the fact that it's unequivocal now. There's video evidence of the SAS committing war crimes in Afghanistan. It's a fact, and if you're in the SAS and you're upset about it, get over yourself. How do you think I feel? There's a lot more footage. I won't tell you how I know that, but yes, there is. Now, while I thought it was right for me to point that out before I start turning my attention to the senior command again, because as an officer, I think that's really what you've got to do. You look out for your soldiers, but you also keep an eye on what the senior commander is doing. That's just the way I see it. And a bit like being a parent, if the teacher comes to you and says your child's a bully, you don't immediately punish the child and take the teacher's word for it. But if the teacher shows you CCTV footage of your kid beating up on another kid, you don't deny it either, and you take some sort of action. Now I've seen the footage, and there's no doubt about it, the SAS has a lot to answer for. Not all of them, but a lot of them, a lot of them. And I think the General's right to say it's going to take 10 years to rebuild them. And credit where credit's due for saying that. Lack of moral leadership, absolutely. But, here's the but, we do have to, while I agree with everything the Special Operations Commander said, we do have to apply the same yardstick over the whole Defence Force. And this is where I'm getting to now. This has been the missing piece for me, to see all the footage and to see the definitive story and listen to Dusty Miller and put that together with the patrol report of Sarkum and some of the other patrol reports that I've got. We'll see. My lawyers have got them, don't worry. The picture's becoming clearer. It's not great for the leadership, I'm afraid. And this is what I believed happened. The leadership knew in 2012 and before. The footage existed. This is not someone coming out of the woodwork. The footage existed and they had access to that footage. Let's just say that before I break any laws. And this is why I don't like them. And I can see why, from a public affairs point of view, they probably thought it was pretty smart. They said the war's coming to an end. We don't want to put our most famous decorated soldiers on trial at the end of the war. It'll be very bad for morale and whatever. So what we will do is we will cover it up. They wouldn't say that, but we'll put the lid on it. Maybe they would have said. But what they did, and this is why I got onto them, I saw the cover-up, not the crime. But what I saw, and I suspected that maybe there were war crimes, but like most Australians, I wanted to believe. I didn't want to believe it till I saw it. But that was one of the and one of the things I couldn't believe about the war, because I thought if there was, multiple murders of prisoners, I would know about it. There'd be an investigation. I would hear about it as the legal officer in Special Operations Command who dealt with operational matters. You reckon I might have known about it, and I had access to all the systems and whatever. But I think the command. So that was a completely logical thing to say. If prisoners have been shot, you reckon it might have come across my desk. And the reason it didn't is not good. I think it was purposely kept at a very senior level. I think it was purposely stored in places where such things are not meant to be stored, because that's not top secret. That's highly embarrassing. It's criminal, but it's not. It shouldn't have. It's an offence to store something like that in a system which is made for genuine sort of secret capability stuff, which is not that. Crimes are not, can never be classified as that because it looks like you're misusing, and the Americans agree with that. It's one of the principles that Watergate and etc. So anyway, but what the command seemed to have done, and I bet they thought they were really clever, they did the tried and trusted thing to say, we will investigate and flog a whole lot of innocent people. This is why I got so angry. And we will create a diversion for a few years, and then we will slowly leak it to the press, because the command didn't want to be the bad guys. They saw what happened in 2011 in the first war crime trials, in that the country was quite divided, and a lot of people thought the commanders were the bad guys for prosecuting the commandos. And the commanders, as we know from some things I will put on the net, were leaking information in that 2011 trial in order to play both sides. They were leaking information to say the commandos were pretty good guys and they did a good job, but they were also prosecuting them, and they were trying to sort of look good to both sides. So what they did, I think that the leaks about the Ben Roberts-Smith allegations of him kicking the guy Ali Jan off the cliff in 2012, and some of the other the Dusty Miller cases or whatever, that they were leaked to the press by the command over a period of time, because the command wanted the press to expose, and the press could be the good guys, bad guys, however you want to see it, and then the command could come in and say, oh well, we'll sort this out, and the whole process would take, who knows, 8 years, and by then the war would bust it down. And so they would say, well, it hasn't affected the war effort, we've stopped the International Criminal Court coming in because we've finally done something. We've got these investigations, but the longer it gets away from Afghanistan, the less kind of aggravation we will get from the public from putting someone like Ben Roberts-Smith on trial and Soldier C, whoever he is. And that may have been a genius piece of public affairs management. And I'm sure people like Dennis Richardson and whatever would be like, oh yeah, that's very clever, very, very clever. But it was illegal. You know, it was wrong. And if you don't believe me, this is the sort of thing they did. And I'm pretty sure they knew that someone had kicked to death a prisoner, and that someone, they definitely had footage that someone had shot a prisoner at point blank range. Who knows why? And yet, they destroyed the life of an SAS trooper who cut the hand off a dead Taliban in order to use the fingerprints to try and work out whether he was a particular bomb maker. Now compare the two. Cutting off the hand of a dead Taliban and kicking a civilian to death. Which is worse? Which of the command treated as worse? The command treated the hand case as an absolute, the worst thing they'd ever heard. They held the guy out for 4 years. I told them at the beginning, because I was the lawyer, I said, there's no crime. You might not like it, and it might not be palatable to the public or whatever, but it doesn't fit within any criminal thing. And you can't blame a soldier who wasn't committing a crime. And that's just the way it is. Change the laws if you don't like them. And even Neil James came out and said, look, the Taliban had cut your head off when you were alive. But of course no one listened to him. And the minister said, oh, that's the worst thing I've ever heard. And the General Hurley didn't contradict him, he just said silent. In fact, the minister said, General Hurley and I are horrified. Now, I'm pretty sure General Hurley and Stephen Smith knew that prisoners had been murdered, cold blood, And not once, a number of times, and one of them by, I'll have to say it, mate, but someone who's been watered the VC. Now they knew that, and yet they punished this guy. They punished a number of people. They investigated people who clearly had not committed a crime and clearly could never be convicted. And I say that because there were no trials, but they made their lives hell, and they did it for the cynical reason that they were trying to create a distraction. Now that's what I saw. Now that's why I complained. I said, you are not following your own laws. You are putting people on trial without any evidence. And I couldn't work out why they were doing that. One of the things that did occur to me was that there was massive war crimes, but again, it just seemed beyond belief that they would have clear evidence of war crimes and not investigate them. And I've got this to say to you, commanders. Now, you might have thought you were so clever with this plan, but it was wrong. And I think everyone in Australia will agree. If you know someone's committed a war, you put them on trial. It's the right thing by that person, and it's the right thing by the country. War crimes will always happen, but covering them up is bad. And when the SAS people executed a prisoner, they didn't just pretty much execute the SAS, they executed the whole war effort. As Braden Chapman, the SAS signaller, pointed out, can you imagine what it would have been like for the Afghans to see the Australians, SAS, let's be honest, come into a village, shoot random people who were clearly civilians, and not apologise for it, but then go away and say, well, they were Taliban. What do you think the Afghans, if the people watching that weren't Taliban before, you can guarantee they were Taliban now. And that's all right, that happens in every war, but the fact that the Australian generals didn't investigate that, they didn't punish that. And they might say, oh, we're punishing it now. Yeah, in a total orchestrated press thing so you can look good, and they're not doing it in order to help the SAS or whatever, they're doing it so they can look good. They didn't want to look like the bad guys by prosecuting them at the time. God knows why you wouldn't want to just do the right thing. But now, I'm afraid, sirs, and you are all sirs, you can't, you've been found out. It's not just me, the footage is coming out now. You knew. And if you didn't know, I'd come forward. But I think you knew, and a lot of the things that happened in 2013 and 2014 and 15 were smoke screens to cover up for what you already knew. And I'm afraid that's why I've got it in for the management, because you might have thought you were clever, but you weren't. And I think in the same way that General Finlay says it's going to take 10 years to repair the damage to the SAS, and I think that's fair. But 10 years from after the trial's finished, to be fair. The clock hasn't started yet. And I think for the senior, I wouldn't say everyone in the army, but for everyone at ADF headquarters, let's say, all the sort of 2, 3 and 4 stars, how long do you think it's going to take for you guys to have credibility once everybody knows that you effectively covered up war crimes, leaked it to the press when you wanted to, tried to stage manage trials, and make sure that no one above the rank of corporal was ever implicated? Andrew Hastie, what do you think, mate? I guess as a captain in Afghanistan, you were a long way from the action. How would you know? Jim Molan, I guess it didn't happen in your day. There's a lot of people who've got a lot of answers, a lot of things to answer anyway. The fact that the command committed crimes doesn't mean that the soldiers didn't. And the fact that the soldiers did doesn't mean that the commanders don't have to answer to the same standard. And in fairness, I will have to say that the commandos, apart from Kevin Frost, I think it was, I mean, I haven't seen, any evidence commando war crimes. Yeah, there probably is, but that does need to be pointed out, I think. Maybe it'll come out, but I mean, they credit where credit's due. Yeah, that's it. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. And if you've got something to hide, now might be the time to come clean.